Here's my campsite at Liwonde National Park, which is perhaps 100 kilometers south of Lake Malawi or Lake Nyasa. And it sits on the Shire River, which drains another little lake called Mwambi, which is just south of Lake Malawi. Anyways, I was going to be camping in the designated campground associated with this lodge, but because there were a few other camping parties that booked or that came in unexpectedly, the owner asked me if I wanted to set up in this private site on the other side of the compound. And of course I did, because it's a wonderful site. We got great shade trees here. And then, more importantly, it sits on this little bench overlooking this nice little wetland, which is a finger off of the Shire River, and a little arm of the Shire River comes in the back there. And there's a bunch of wildlife out there on that little peninsula, which I'll share with you in the next little video. Anyways, sweet little site for 3 nights. Cheers. I am in Liwonde National Park in Malawi, and my first morning, and I am looking out over the floodplain of the Shire River, which drains Lake Mwambi, which is separated from the huge Lake Malawi or Lake Nyasa by a short river. And this would normally be a river that has not flooded its banks, but because of all the rains this year, the entire floodplain here is now mostly covered with water. So you can see all the trees out there that are inundated in water. And apparently, all the heavy rains they had this year that caused major flooding in Tanzania and Kenya, well, they also had them here, and it raised the lake and the river levels. And so it flooded the entire floodplain. And so it's interesting, the floodplain actually has almost no vegetation on the ground. It was all kind of flooded, and so there's basically just bare ground. Otherwise, it's mostly Mopani forest. And I talked a lot about Mopani trees and their importance and their uses as a vegetative type last year. Anyways, a lot of water birds in the fringing wetlands. And more to come. Cheers. I'm in Liwonde National Park still, on the floodplains of the Shire River. Just showing you a little more of what some of the floodplains look like. They extend for several kilometers from the river, and kind of a mixture of these open, grassy, barren plains and Mopani woodland. And I'll zoom in because I don't know if you can see, but there are waterbuck and impala everywhere out here on these plains. And apparently the impala would be the primary prey for the cheetah, of which there apparently is a healthy and growing population. And I guess the waterbuck, given how numerous they are, is one of the primary prey for the lions. And I learned that there's 5 males, 3 prides, each with a male, and then 2 new single males that were just introduced a couple months ago to add some genetic diversity to this small population. With any luck, I'll see one or both of those species. Cheers. I'm in the floodplain of the Shire River within Liwonde, and this is all Mopani woodland. And one of the cool things in this area are these massive ancient termite mounds, which you see behind the green dragon there. They're the size of houses. And, trees grow out of the top of them, showing you kind of how old they are. A lot of these are probably hundreds of years old. And out where it's flooded, they form basically islands. But I just think they're really cool, given how huge they are. And they always support some pretty cool trees. Different trees than the Mopani that must like to not be seasonally flooded. Anyways, thought that was interesting. Bye. I wanted to follow up a little bit on the termite mounds in this park that are scattered all through the floodplains. And termites really are a truly amazing species. And you'd have to say they're what we call a keystone species in this ecosystem, because not only do these termite mounds provide little habitat islands for all kinds of plants and especially different trees to grow on, and those termite mounds also become homes for lots of other critters like mongoose and snakes and reptiles and so forth. But they also perform an amazing role in decomposition and nutrient cycling in the forest floor. So as I'm panning around, you probably notice there's very little vegetation on the forest floor. It's mostly bare with just a little bit of grass stubble. And that is primarily because the termites eat everything. So all the herbaceous vegetation and then all the leaves and things that fall get consumed by the termites. And so you get left with this, somewhat barren forest floor. But as a result, they just have an incredible role in structuring this ecosystem. Anyways, that was probably too much more than you wanted to know, but I think termites are pretty amazing, and this place is a pretty good example of how important they are in some systems. Cheers. Some greater kudu females and baby. Lots of hippos in the Shire River here in Liwonde, but most of them are in the water during the day. This guy must not gotten enough to eat last night. Whereas his brothers over here are taking their midday nap. All right, happy eating. today that these line fishermen here that are fishing here in the marsh oftentimes get eaten by crocs. Our guide in the boat said 8 people were eaten by crocs last year alone. Risky business. One of the amazing things in this park is the number of greater kudu. And I've seen hundreds, which again is fairly exceptional. This is a group of females and several young. And what's interesting about this individual, she's got a bunch of oxpeckers. You see those birds eating ticks and other small little invertebrates hidden in the fur. Okay, cheers. Always a joy to see elephants, especially matriarchal herds when there's lots of babies. That is a really teeny baby elephant back there. Hanging out with her big sister. And I'm assuming that's Mom. They like that tree, whatever it is. Look how they keep that little baby right in the middle. Boy, that is one teeny little baby elephant. You can barely even see it under there. He's hiding underneath Mama's legs. There she is. Alrighty. I am currently surrounded by elephants. They're on both sides of my vehicle right now. And they're all busy feeding. Well, except for these guys. Here comes the adolescent to catch up to Mom. Wow. Look at Mom stretch way up there with her trunk to grab those leaves. That's impressive. Okay, I know the light is terrible, but this is one of Nancy and I's favorite antelope. It's called the sable. And this is a male with a really dark coat and those big curved horns. Appears to be all by himself. Yesterday I saw a herd with females and young, but I wasn't able to photograph them. They were too far off. Anyways, one of our favorite antelopes. Well, you're not seeing it very well because of the light, but they're really beautiful. Okay, cheers. Found another small group of the beautiful sable. Looks like a couple males and a few females. There's a female with that brown, deep chocolate brown coat. And there's a male there in the front with that black and white contrasting coat. And both sexes have those big curved scimitar horns. Okay, cheers.